Hey, yo, I want to talk about my hatred for alchemy. And before we even begin, this is going to be a negative video. It would be impossible for me to talk about my feelings on alchemy in a positive light. I hate it. But you know what this is going to be. You saw the thumbnail, you clicked on it anyway. And to be fair, a lot of the positive videos I make, they just don't get the views. So if you truly want to see more positive content, check out my last video on Bloomborough. I bring up some concerns, but overall I like the look of the set, I'm excited for it. Or there's this one that I put a bunch of work into where I invent a new format that makes Pokemon cards playable in Magic. And if that's not your jam, check out this video, which is a tutorial on how to make pancakes using Magic cards as ingredients. This commenter called it mildly unhinged in a great way, and that was very much my goal when making it. Link in the description below for all of those. Second thing up top is a disclaimer. I don't play alchemy. I have never played alchemy, and I have no intention of ever playing alchemy. I also don't play Arena. I have played Arena in the past, and it was fine. I don't like the monetization, and I feel a big part of Magic the Gathering is the gathering part. That's just not something that a digital client can really capture for me. But genuinely, the main reason I don't play Arena is spite. Fueled by my hatred for alchemy. Alchemy is on Arena, so fuck Arena. I won't play it. Unless, I change my mind at some point. It's very tiring to try and maintain this level of rage I have against a card game, But the reason I bring all this up is because I want to be clear. This video is on why I hate alchemy. I'm not saying that you should hate alchemy too, and I'm not saying that alchemy is objectively bad. It might be, and I'm certainly going to go over several reasons why I think it is, but this is very much a subjective thing. I got a lot of comments on my video knocking battle cards, talking about how well they play in certain formats, and that really wasn't my point. My point in that video was about the flavour. A similar thing happened with my video on how Karlov Manor was ruined for me. I got a number of comments upset that I was bashing the set before it was even out. But again, that video wasn't on the set itself, but the marketing around it. So I'm a little worried that people are going to see the thumbnail on this one and assume I'm talking about how alchemy is to play. I'm not, I've never played it, but I still have plenty of reasons to dislike it. And one main reason that pushes me into hatred for it. So with all of that out of the way, what the hell am I even talking about? Arena is one of Magic the Gathering's digital clients, a means to play a version of Magic the Gathering online without the need for physical cards. The reason I specifically say a version of Magic the Gathering is because it's not a one-to-one translation. Many of the cards that physically exist haven't been ported into the game, and you're limited in what kind of formats you can play. Plus, as I said, a big part of Magic the Gathering, for me at least, is the social aspect. Looking your opponent in the eye as you remove their key combo piece. Trying to hide your emotions as your opponent does the same thing to you. The politics, the mind games, the laughs that come with playing with people. You just can't get that experience by playing with faceless digital ghosts. If Arena went offline tomorrow and just filled its lobbies with AIs, I'm not sure that a lot of people would be able to tell the difference. Also, collecting cards is a big part of the game, and yeah, you can collect digital cards, but when the game stops getting supported, like it's happening with Magic Online, those cards are just gone. You don't own them. They're not in a binder that you can show off on the Antiques Roadshow. They're ones and zeros on a server somewhere that can be deleted. So that's Arena. Alchemy is a format that can be played within Arena, that features exclusive cards that were designed to take advantage of their digital-only nature. These cards have never been printed, they do not exist in the physical world, and you cannot play a copy of them in a real deck that you can hold in your hand. And that results in a format where you can do things that you could supposedly never do in paper. Like play this flying 4/4 that removes non-mana abilities from a non-basic land and makes them deal damage each turn unless sacrificed instead. Or this shapeshifter that costs 1 less to cast if you didn't go first and enters the battlefield as a copy of a permanent except it's an artifact. Or this instant that lets a target player draw 3 cards. Wait, that's just Ancestral Recall. Why the fuck is this in Alchemy? If you couldn't tell from my somewhat straw man examples, I think a whole bunch of these cards absolutely could have been printed in paper. So much so that a lot of them have been before. From my admittedly half-hearted research, there appears to be 733 cards currently printed for Alchemy. And 205 of these are literally just reprints from Baldur's Gate. And that's not including the Dominaria reprints like Ancestral Recall, Time Walk and the Moxes, which I bring up because it kind of hits on all 4 reasons that I have to dislike alchemy. So let me go through them one at a time. First off, and I know this is going to be controversial, but it feeds into my other points, so I'm getting it out of the way. I said a minute ago that a bunch of these cards could be printed in paper. I lied. It is my belief that not a bunch, but 100% of alchemy cards could be printed in paper. All of them. Now, in fairness, my 3 example cards from earlier weren't really representative of alchemy as a whole. The majority of the cards have exclusive keywords like perpetual and seek, designed to take advantage of Arena being a digital client. However, I maintain that there is not an alchemy mechanic that exists that could not function in the real world. They might not be the most fun, but it could be done. Now, I thought about trying to prove that here in this video, but I'm not going to because the runtime would balloon. There are just too many cards and mechanics to cover. I'd be here for hours. Instead, in the future, I'm going to bring out a series of videos looking at each alchemy mechanic one at a time and talking about how they could be made to function in paper, whilst retaining what the cards actually do. And if you're worried that would mean having to reword or rework some of the rules a bit, then yeah. But Magic do that themselves all of the time. Oubliette and Ardent Angel are a good example of this. So they've set the precedent that it can be done, and I'm going to do it. If that interests you and you want to stay up to date with that, scroll down and hit the notification bell. It will tell you when a new video of mine comes out, and while you're there, please like and subscribe. It lets the algorithm know that maybe more people want to see these videos, which is a big help to me. Thank you. Now, as to why I would even want these digital cards in paper, even though they may be a ball ache, and why I dislike alchemy for being digital only, well, that leads into my next 3 points. The half-stonification of Magic the Gathering. This page right here is the top result if you Google MTG Alchemy. It's Wizards.com's official explanation of the alchemy format. In the first paragraph alone, rebalanced standard cards, rebalanced cards, rebalanced Magic cards, rebalanced versions of existing standard cards. What does rebalanced mean? Well, it means that they can change the cards whenever they like. If a card's doing too well, they lower its stats or raise its mana cost to nerf it. If a card's not doing very well, they can make it more powerful. This wouldn't be an issue, but you have to pay for the fucking cards. They're not free. Imagine a card in a format that's dominating, and you're losing to it over and over again, and then you finally break and you think, you know what, I'm going to spend the money and I'm going to buy one myself, just to have its functionality then changed underneath you. Now remember, I don't play alchemy, but I have heard that this happens, and I've heard that people have issues getting refunds for those cards when it happens. The excuse being that you don't get a refund because the card is technically still playable. Yeah, but it's bad now, so why would you want to? This is worse than banning the cards outright, because at least when they ban the card you get a refund for it. By just making the card unplayable, they technically haven't banned it, which means they don't have to refund you anything. Get fucked. Now, I would love to say that these sorts of rules changes on cards couldn't happen in physical, but look at Companions and the fact that hounds aren't a thing anymore, which, if you've watched any of my videos, you know that I fucking hate. However, at least in physical, it's done rarely, or as some sort of last resort. Making changes so that the cards that you own don't do what they say they do anymore is a feel bad, especially if you've gone out of your way to get them. But with alchemy, making those types of changes is the intention. It's why they made the format. Let's look at that explanation page again. Here we go. Players can expect these regular changes to the format to create a dynamic play experience between standard set releases. You do not own any of these cards. You play them, but they are not yours because they're digital. And at any time they want to make the cards that you have paid for unplayable, they can and will. That's the point of alchemy. If the cards were physical, this would be much harder to do officially. And even if they did do it, you and your friends could just ignore the changes if you wanted to. Unlike on alchemy. My next issue with alchemy, and its non-physical cards, you can't collect them. See this? This is my big binder of Innistrad cards. It's not complete, and it's something I only ever really add to rarely when I can afford it, but once I'm done, I want one copy of every Innistrad card ever made in that binder. The first ever alchemy set came out alongside Midnight Hunt and Crimson Vow, a 2-set block themed around Innistrad. 63 cards were printed for Alchemy Innistrad that I will never be able to put into that binder. My set will never be complete, and I know I'm not the only one who feels this way. So many people told me in the comments of my video on serialized cards that even if they have a non-serialized version of a card, they still want to collect a serialized version too because they want to own one of everything. Well, I guess those people are shit out of luck, because these cards exist, but not in any way that they could be added to a physical collection. Unless you want to proxy them, of course, but then at that point, why not proxy everything? And again, don't tell me that you can digitally collect them, because like I said earlier, Arena's lifespan is finite. One day it will go offline, and then these cards that you've paid for on there will vanish. And that issue is doubly worse with Alchemy because it's a rotating format. The cards are designed to become obsolete, and yeah, once they've rotated you can play them in arena formats like Timeless and Historic, but that's a very different kettle of fish all of a sudden. What if you just want to play in a format that you're used to, or one of your own creation? Well, tough, you don't have a choice because you can only access these cards through a digital client. You know what? Bring up the board, I'm making that its own point. Limited access. Head designer Mark Rosewater says the most popular Magic format that people play is kitchen table Magic, where you and your friends just make up your own rules and play whatever you own. But you can't do that with Alchemy because they're only available online. For instance, if you do want to play that format that I invented that includes Pokemon cards, well, you can't add Alchemy cards to it because they're not real. My next issue is this. Alchemy takes time away from development. Alchemy cards need to be created. Someone needs to spend time making them. And when they do that, they're not working on the main set. Remember Murders at Karlov Manor? Remember how it bombed? Remember how people said the design felt lazy? They said that New Capenna slush art must have been used to save on development time. Remember the conflicting design direction? With wacky comedy Scooby-Doo cameos, alongside the brutal murder of fan-favourite characters? Remember how mismanaged the marketing was? Like, none of the teams that made it were talking to each other? And how they told you who the murderer was in the debut video for this supposed murder mystery set? I certainly fucking do. Did Murders at Karlov Manor feel undercooked? Like it needed more time? Well, it didn't get it, but it still got an Alchemy release, didn't it? 30 cards for Alchemy Murders at Karlov Manor. WotC representative said recently in a panel that the reason that we can't have 3 set blocks anymore is that by staying on one plane, you're only pleasing one small subset of the community. Who the fuck are these Alchemy cards for then, wizards? Because I can't imagine you've made them to please the majority of players, and their existence certainly doesn't fucking please me. So yeah, that's all the reasons that I dislike Alchemy. But they're not the reason that I hate it. They're not enough to put my nose so out of joint that I won't play Arena. No, that reason is all because of this. A book. Brandon Sanderson's Children of the Nameless. First published in 2018. See, I've been playing for a long time. Since the early 2010s. I got into the game through Jewels of the Planeswalkers 2012, which confusingly came out in June of 2011. And just so you know, yeah, that's a video game. I'm not opposed to every digital version of Magic. But that game that I downloaded from Xbox Arcade came with a promo code, redeemable at my LGS, for a real-life Grave Titan card. I loved it. I was mostly playing decks with all the evil nasty creatures in the video game anyway, so when I arrived at the store and laid my eyes upon this, an entire deck? Black-red mana? With vampires on the face? Called Carnival of Blood? Within my price range? Sign me up. I was hooked. I loved it. And it's the reason I love Innistrad so much. It's what got me into the game. So years later, when this book comes out, and it's not only set on Innistrad, like my favourite decks, but also continues the ongoing narrative of the plane, whilst taking a closer look at some of the aspects of Innistrad that I find most interesting, like how demon contracts work and what it looks like when a friendly spirit becomes a Geist. And it's free to read online? A full book? I was thrilled. Before reading, I knew nothing about Davriel Kane, but once I'd finished the book, I was invested. Not just in him, but in all of the characters. I wanted Davriel Kane and I wanted Miss Highwater on her card. War of the Spark rolls around and yeah, we get a Davriel Kane printing, but it's not set on Innistrad, and there's certainly no printing of his companions like Yeldris or Gutmorn. But then, in 2020, I hear word it's finally happening. We're going back to Innistrad. Finally, a proper Innistrad printing of Davriel Kane, Miss Highwater, maybe even Crunchnar. And then the set comes and goes and nothing. Except wait, there's my handsome boy. There's the Davriel printing that I wanted. Even some other cards to go with him. What a fun, flavourful deck this will make. And is that Rahilda? Sick, I always wondered why she never got a printing. Oh and look, a new Tybalt, that's maybe better than the last one. Captain Eberhart? A new Ishkana? A new Gitrog? Oh and look, I don't know for sure, but I'd bet money on that being Crunchnar. Oh, and poor tragic Gutmorn got a printing too. His and his sister's story breaks my heart. But not as much as the fact that all of these cards are for alchemy. I can't own them because they're not real. Remember my big binder of Innistrad cards earlier? These can't go in there. My imagined mono black deck I'd get to play recreating the events from the book, Davriel, Miss Highwater and all of his demons, not gonna exist. I waited for years. I feel robbed. Cheated. I don't even really care what the cards do. I mean, that's not strictly true. They finally printed Rem Carolus and I'm not sure why he's got flying. The only time we see him interact with a Griff is when he's unsure about the one that Thalia gets murdered. But my point is, I love these characters. I love this story. Before Universes Beyond, Magic the Gathering was about telling tales of these fantastical worlds and introducing you to characters that, if you loved them, you could go out and get cards of them and build decks around them. A harmony between narrative and gameplay. Alchemy took that from me. Because I bet we're never going to see another Gutmorn printing. Because why would we? He's a tiny minor character. Alchemy made sure that I never get to own this card. And for that, I hate it. But what do you guys think? Let me know in the comments below. Anyone else lost a beloved character to Alchemy, or am I just a crazy person? I wish these cards had actual prints. I don't think there's any reason why they couldn't. And at some point, I'm going to put out some videos proving it. Oh, and you know what? Link in the description for Children of the Nameless 2. If you like gothic horror mystery thrillers, it's a fantastic read and you don't need to have any prior knowledge of Innistrad's lore going into it. I would highly recommend it. Thank you very much for watching this video, and thank you to my patrons whose names are on screen now. I'd also like to thank the sponsor for this video, me and my Patreon page, where you can get your name credited on screen too. Check it out in the link in the description below. Hit the like button, leave a comment, install an ad block, get weirdly upset about alchemy cards being printed, and most importantly subscribe and share this video with a friend. Hit the notification bell and do all those things the algorithm loves. If you agree or disagree with any of my points, or you want to see me do a video on another subject, let me know and I will see you next time.